was just this morning at one of our first stops for fuel. Had a guy come up, not a car guy, but he was interested. He thought, he liked the look of the car and was curious. And he goes, "Hey man, is that a Camaro?" The funny thing about it is that he's literally standing right in front of the headlight door where it says Charger. And obviously, I got the Charger script on the C-pillars too. So I'm kind of wondering, I was like, you can read that, right? But anyway, I've always laughed at the idea of getting a car wrong. But that's not necessarily fair to a lot of people who just aren't initiated in the different kinds of cars. So I wanted to share a couple examples of when people have gotten cars wrong that I'm sure you guys can share the same story, and I'd love to get your comments at the end of this video. One of the best ones I got, though, was I pulled into an AutoZone, and I was in the Charger, and it was running good, and I was happy with it. It was just a Saturday I came in, and I pulled in alongside, I think it was a C5 Corvette. But there was a young kid, probably 10 or 12 years old, and his dad. And I knew that kid thought his dad had a pretty cool car. And he was sitting in the car while his dad ran in to go get something. And so I came out, and the dad and the kid were now outside of the car, and they were looking at it. And the dad is standing right by the C-pillar where it says Charger. I mean, right there. And he goes, "Is this a Challenger?" I said, no, it's a 69 Dodge Charger. He goes, "Oh, okay. He was like Fast and the Furious." I go, "Well, they used a 70, but they're real close." He's like, "Oh, okay, cool." And I said, "Is that your Corvette?" I had to throw the guy a bone. He goes, yeah. I said, "Cool, man." And I'm like, "How long you had it?" "Oh, I got it a couple of years ago." I'm like, "Oh, that's fun." The kid goes, "How fast is it?" And I said, "Well, right now it runs in the high 10s. I wish it was a little quicker." He says, "How much horsepower does it make?" And I said, "Oh, I'm doing about 650 horse at the flywheel and a 700 foot-pound torque at the flywheel." And the kid's he just heard the number 700, and that's all it. And he looked at his dad, and his dad's like, "Well, we're not doing that." And I said, "Oh, okay, cool." And he goes, "Can I hear you fire up?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm about to leave." So he gets in his car, and I get in the Charger, and we're about to pull out, and there's two exits to the parking lot for this AutoZone. He pulls out on the little side street, and he's waiting to turn left, and I'm turning right into the flow of traffic. And so I kind of creep out, wait till I get it straight, and I just stomp on the throttle. And of course the car, I think this was before I had the Caltrax on it, so it just walked all over the road. Just, I couldn't keep it straight. But just, got out of it when I got to about 50 and backed out, took off. And that Corvette sat there in the median just watching the smoke clear. I pulled into a little car cruise that our hometown has every Friday night. So I pull in, and our tech editor Mike is there, and he's got his Roadrunner, and I'm making small talk with him. And this guy comes up, and he's got his wife with him and his son, and he starts pointing at the car, saying it's a Hemi. He goes, "Oh yeah, Hemi Charger, and he calls it a 70, and he says it's a Hemi Charger, and he's sitting there and he's kind of running his mouth, and finally I'm like, okay, I can't take it anymore. So I walk up to him and I'm like, "Hey, how you doing?" He's like, "Oh, good, man." He's like, "I like the Charger." I said, "Thanks." And I just start volunteering information, because I don't want to say, "Hey, you were wrong," But I was like, yeah, I'm like, I go, I know it's a 69, and you know everyone wants the 70 from the Fast and Furious movies, but this is the same year that they used for Dukes of Hazzard. You know, it's a pretty popular car. And he goes, oh yeah. It kind of got quiet because I said it's a 69 Charger, you know, and I said, you know, I really would love to have a Hemi in the car, but those motors are really expensive, and just getting your hands on an inch of block's really tough. And I said that's just a 440 block that I pulled out of a motorhome. But I punched it out to 535 cubic inches. So I automatically volunteer. It's not a Hemi. It's a 440. You know, I'm putting this stuff out there. The guy's kind of getting quiet, but his son's a teenager. And I was like, hey, you know, when you see a Hemi, yeah, you can't miss them. They got the spark plugs in the valve covers, and they're so big they nearly touch the shock towers. And just kind of, you know, getting the kid hyped about it. But I wanted to kind of re-educate and at least get the right information out there. I said, plus, if this is a Hemi car, this thing would be worth $80,000. This is a Frankenstein that I pieced together. It's not a real RT, blah, blah, blah. So anyhow, you know, the guy thanks me. He goes on his merry way. I took my kids, I took my two oldest kids out to a little burger joint, and I always park way out. I'm like, I don't want anyone parking next to me. So I parked way out, and without fail, some knucklehead always parks in next to me. So I'm annoyed that someone has pulled in next to me, and it's, you know, it's not the normal Prius or the station wagon or minivan. No one drives station wagons anymore. But it's a couple of young guys in like a late 80s Fox body Mustang. And I'm like, all right, well, they're thinking we're going to park where the hot rods are parking. All right, I'll give you that. So I get out. We walk out to the car. These two guys, and they're in their 20s. They come out and they're like, dude, hey, want to talk to you about your car. Didn't know who owned it. And they're looking, there's two kids' car seats in the back seat, you know, with a roll cage in it. So they're like, hey man, we've seen you around town, we gotta talk to you. I'm like, no problem. And he goes, can we see the engine? I said, sure. So I pull the pins and I open up the hood. And they're like, oh dude, what is it? So I'm talking to them. The kids are impatient, they want to go home. So anyway, I said, yeah, it's a big stroker 440 motor. And they go, well, what's the 440? How big is a 440? And I kind of looked at him funny, and I go, what do you mean, how big is a 440? And he goes, well, this is a 5.0. I go, yeah, it's a 5 liter. It comes out to 302. And they're like, oh. So I said, just imagine another third. That's basically a 440. A little bit more than a third. And they're kind of looking at me. I go, okay, a 426 Hemi is roughly 7 liters. All right. Was a 440, so that's 7.3 or 7.4 liters? I said, so the rough math at a 535 comes up to just under 9 liters. So I go, yeah, it's basically a 9 liter. And they're like, dude, that's like double the size of my engine. I said, well, it's not really double, but it's in the ballpark. It's getting close. So they kind of were like, all right, well, can we hear you fire up? I'm like, yeah, I'm leaving right now. So I fire up the car. It was still a little warm. It wasn't cold. Throw it in gear, pull out of there. And that was the end of it. That was, you know, something kind of funny. Yeah, I've always gotten a kick out of people getting the car wrong. Now, it's one thing if it's like, hey, you have a Coronet and someone mistakes it for a Roadrunner, you know, a Valiant for a Dart, you know, or something to that effect. I've made those mistakes. It's, you know, oh, hey, I like your Dart. It's a swinger. Dude, I get it. Okay. You know, when guys like wholesale get your car wrong, I always kind of laugh at that. Never been called a Mustang. I've been called a Chevelle a couple times. Been asked if it was a Camaro, and then there's the guys who are like, is it a Challenger or is it the wrong year? But I'd love to hear your best mistaken identity stories. So if you guys have a mistaken identity story, please make sure to share it at the end of this video.